Good morning, happy Thursday, and today I'm really excited to be sharing the screen and this conversation with a good friend, Jay Cuff of Hearty Farm in Dixon, and we're going to be learning from Jay a lot in a little bit. But as usual, we're going to start with our round robin of check-ins from around the state and seeing how everybody's doing. And because our farmer Jay is someone who predominantly, normally, not right now, but normally sells a lot at farmers markets, and specifically one farmers market in Sacramento, I thought that the question for today for everybody should be, do you normally, maybe not right now, but do you normally go to farmers markets to buy produce? Even if it's once a month or something like that, and tell us what your farmer's market is if you do go to a farmer's market, or if you have another way of buying directly from a farmer. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Mary Kimball. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Land-Based Learning. And I actually am super lucky. I mean, I like farmers markets and all, but I actually really like just getting produce directly from farmers that I know, and I love to buy CSA boxes. And CSA, if you don't know what that is, stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's like a subscription box that you get every week that is filled with awesome veggies and fruit from the farms that you know and love and that you have a personal connection to. So I'm very lucky in that I have a lot of options to buy from, and I get one now from Fiery Ginger Farm in West Sacramento, which part of that produce is also coming from Jay's farm. So let's go to, actually Dana's not here, so Joseph, you're up.
Good morning, my name is Joseph Montoya. I'm the Farms Leadership Coordinator for the Sacramento Valley. I'm sorry I missed that question. I was typing in the chat box to one of my dragons that just jumped on. What was the question one more time?
The question is do you normally go to farmers markets to buy produce or fruit or anything? And what is your local farmers market that you like to go to?
I haven't been in a while. When I was younger, I would go to the X, the one under the X.
WX, yep. Mm-hmm.
The WX, and I actually remember specifically getting these olives from there. There were these huge monster olives. They were, I don't know, seasoned in some kind of way. And we would buy them in these huge jars, but I kid you not, I could eat like 10% of those jars in a single sitting, back to back to back. Delicious. I don't know what happened to the guy. My dad used to go, and I would go sometimes. But it was olives. I still remember what they taste like, and they were delicious. I like olives.
I can eat olives like that too. All right, Katie, you're up.
Good morning. My name is Katie Wortman in Fresno. I am the Central Valley Farms Coordinator. I'm currently, I used to get a box from CSA here in Fresno, and they went out of business about 8 months ago. And I don't typically go to farmers markets. I know that's really bad, but we do grow our own, have a garden that I have access to. And if like FFA students in the area have gardens or are selling stuff like that, especially corn in the summertime, Tulare FFA has an awesome crop. So we do go that route every once in a while.
Perfect. And let's see, Romy, you're up next.
Good morning. My name is Romy Wattenberger. I'm the Kern County Farms Coordinator here in Bakersfield. I would say I don't go very often, but if I do, I like to get fresh produce. We have one at the marketplace. And then we've also been going to our friends at Red House Beef, and we get our organic beef there, and they have eggs all the time. So we go there and they started doing vegetables also, so we get some there also.
Awesome. Yes, love Red House Beef. Okay, and Letty, you're up.
Hi, I'm Letty Fernandez. I run the program in Monterey and Santa Cruz County. I love a good farmer's market. I actually served on the board for a nonprofit farmer's market for a couple of years. And unfortunately, locally, we only have a seasonal summer one, but I do like to make a trip out to Monterey occasionally. for their farmers market.
Thank you, Letty. Okay, so we just made it around the state. That's awesome. So now we're back in the Sacramento region with our farmer, Jay Cuff. So Jay, I'm going to do a little quick intro of you, but I'd like you to tell us more about yourself. So Jay and I met each other a little while ago now. Won't say how many years, but it's been a little while.
Yeah.
Jay was a member of a participant and a graduate then of our California Farm Academy for the Center for Land-Based Learning, which is our beginning farmer training program. And Jay was in one of the first classes that we had. And he is still farming as a result of being in that training program that we have in winters. And he now farms in the Dixon area, and he has a beautiful farm. And I'm going to have him talk about how his travel, so to speak, to agriculture and to farming, his journey, and then also about his farm and what he grows. And you can see right now he's literally in his greenhouse, and it is getting warm in our region right now. So he's a little warm. So if he's sweating, don't be concerned. It's just because he's in a greenhouse. So take it away, Jay.
That's right. Okay, yeah. I'm here in Dixon or Davis. We're right on the border of Dixon and Davis. So sometimes I say I'm in Davis, sometimes I say I'm in Dixon. So I have a 2-acre certified organic farm here. So I'm a very, very small farm, especially compared to the other farms that you've talked to. Mine is much smaller. I have what's considered a market garden or a truck farm. So basically everything I grow, which is, I basically just have all the mixed vegetables that you can see at a farmer's market. So I'll have beets, carrots, cabbage, kale, peppers, tomatoes. So I grow all of those crops it was specifically for a farmer's market. About 90% of my sales were to the farmer's market. And it was one main farmer's market. I had gone to several others in the last couple of years, but I kind of consolidated into one farmer's market, which is the biggest one in the Sacramento region. So that was my main source of sales and income were at the farmer's market. Now it's a little bit different, so things have changed a little bit. But yeah, that's basically my farm. And I farm by myself pretty much. Sometimes, depending on demand, depending on my needs at the time, I'll have 1 or 2 people help me during the summertime, usually for harvesting. But pretty much everything else I do on my own. So with 2 acres, that's relatively manageable. I work quite a lot, but still fairly manageable for me now. So I came to farming fairly late in my life. So I grew up in Oregon. I grew up working on farms and surrounded by agriculture, but I was never involved. My family didn't own a farm or anything. I was never really involved in the business side of farming. I always just worked on farms. So I kind of understood agricultural and how things worked, but I was never really into the business of farming. And when I left my home for college, I thought, okay, that's the end of my farming. I'll never go back to farming. I'll probably never be in the fields again. So I thought farmers markets are basically going to be the only way I'm going to do this, or my own personal garden. But in 2013, I was talking to my wife about just how, if we could go back and do things differently, how would we do our lives differently? And I thought, well, maybe I'd do have a little bit more involvement with agriculture. I'd love to do that. And so my wife had heard about this California Farm Academy. And she said, well, why don't you check this out and see what they have to say about farming? So I thought it'd be, just a great way to meet farmers in the area and just to learn how farmers do what they do and what it's like to have a small farm, what organic farms are like. And so I went to the Farm Academy, I applied and got into the Farm Academy. And after the first couple of classes, I was like, this is fantastic. I absolutely want to be involved. So at the time I was a teacher, and I sort of transitioned out of that fairly quickly. And within that first summer, I had started a farm with a partner who I met in the Farm Academy. And I really haven't looked back since then. So I've been farming since 2013. And here I am. I've had several different iterations of my farm. So it's gone from 1 acre in the very beginning to about 8 acres at one point, and then was 4 or 5 employees. And I've sort of scaled back and forth, and I've made different changes and experimented with different things. But I've sort of settled into the last 2 years. I've had just the 2 acres, all certified organic. I do pretty much specialty crops for my customers at the farmers market. And yeah, so that's where I am today.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to bring up, yeah, you met the original partner with
Yeah.
Hearty Pork in the California Farm Academy, and he's still farming too, which is so cool. He has his own farm over in West Sacramento. Both of you guys literally went headfirst into it, which I so appreciate, and it's awesome to see you succeed. So, you know, because we've been talking to larger farmers about what the response has been to COVID-19, please tell us really what has changed for you in the last 4 weeks in terms of your sales, where you're selling, who you're talking to, just the kind of crazy upheaval and all of it that has been going on for you as a small farmer.
Yeah, well, for me, it was sort of a choice, right? Because farmers markets are still open now. So, I mean, there's still lots of farmers still going to farmers markets and lots of customers still going. So the demand is really still pretty high at the farmers market, and the attendance is still relatively high at the farmers market. But for me, because I'm the only person who works at the farm, and because of the cash nature of the markets, it was a little bit more risky for me. So I couldn't have someone who just processed the money and then handled vegetables separately. So it's just me who's doing all of that. So I kind of, just to keep everybody safe, I decided that I wasn't going to go to the farmers market anymore. So because 90% of my sales go through the farmers market, I sort of had to scramble, sort of just like everybody else was doing. I had to sort of figure out how I was going to at least make some sort of sales. I didn't expect to make the same amount of sales, but I had to keep things going. So for the first week when I was out, I didn't make any sales at all. So I thought, okay, I just need to figure out what I'm going to do. So what I did was I contacted as many other farmers as I could, small farmers like me. And I knew that some of them were in the same or similar situation. So I thought, how are we going to do this? Like, we can work together and figure out how to do this. Because in this very small farming community, we tend to rely on each other quite a lot. So we talk to each other all the time. I'm in constant communication with all the other small farmers around me. So we sort of figured out that there was still a demand, because I was continuously, after I had left the market, I started to get messages from customers at the farmers market who were like, well, what are we going to do? Like, where are we going to get our produce? We don't really want to go to the grocery store. We don't really want to go out, but then we still need to get our produce. So how can we do that? So I partnered with a few other small farms who were sort of in the same boat, and they were trying to figure out what to do. And for myself, I didn't really have the time to put together a box or to make a bunch of deliveries. So we sort of figured out with about 4 or 5 other small farms, how can we do this? And some farms were able to do the administrative part and put the boxes together. Some of us farmers were able to contribute produce. So basically what I've ended up doing is selling my produce to other farms who are doing CSA type boxes. So that's basically become, again, like 90% of my sales. So I'm actually, because the demand is so high for those types of boxes now. Like I said, people don't necessarily want to go to the stores. They still can. Like I said, the farmers market's still open, but demand has shot up for those kind of small farm boxes. And one, I think, very interesting thing is that people are now realizing, oh, there's so many small farms that surround me. No matter where you live, there are small farms around. There are urban farms, even in Sacramento itself. There are urban farms. West Sacramento, there are a bunch of small farms. So we're actually much more visible now than we ever were. And the places that I sell to now are pretty much completely sold out. So this demand, like I said, has skyrocketed. And I'm pretty much maxed out as far as selling my produce. So I'm able to sell all of my produce, even though it's a totally different avenue now. That took, like I said, about two or 3 weeks to figure all that out. But now we're pretty much in the groove. Now, the crazy part is when people do start going back to restaurants and back to stores and businesses open again, we don't know what's going to happen at that point. But for now, for now, I'm actually doing pretty well. And my job, being on the farm, I have very little interaction with people now. So I'm in a pretty low risk area. So
You are socially distanced, like
absolutely.
all the time.
I can go days without seeing another person. So my biggest interaction was at the farmer's market. So I'm pretty safe. I mean, I'm keeping myself safe. My wife is working from home, so we're pretty safe. But yeah, and you know, pretty much my business has continued as normal. The only difference is now I'm boxing it up and, you know, delivering instead of taking it to the farmer's market.
Sure. Well, I know, I think it's so awesome right now to see a lot of small farms who've had CSA boxes and maybe seen their numbers dwindling over the years. Katie was referencing a farmer, a program in Fresno County called OOBY, out of our own backyard or something to that effect. Really cool program. It was originally the farm of TD Willie, then they sold out.
Yeah.
And they shut down last November.
I heard about that.
They're planning their comeback as a result of this. And
wow.
I think
It's
just, you know, it's just really an interesting, they were still selling to other markets, but they were not doing the boxes anymore. So, I mean, I certainly hope, Jay, that just like you were saying, that this is bringing a new group of customers potentially, right, to the box program that didn't know about it before, didn't realize the benefits, and hopefully we'll continue it. But as you said, a lot of that is about whether or not they're going to continue to keep cooking at home and being able to utilize all of the produce each week. We can hope that maybe some of this has changed some practices and that they are beginning to learn some additional recipes or ways to use that fresh produce, and also realize that the fresh produce that they're getting through those boxes lasts longer, because it's way more fresh as well. Even though we have amazing produce here at our grocery stores, it's still, you know, a little bit older than what you guys are providing, and so your boxes are going to last longer than even from the grocery store. So
that's always the biggest issue with the CSA type program or a box, is that people just don't know that it's available for the most part, right? So now people are seeking those things out, which is highly unusual for us. Usually if we do try to start those programs, we're struggling to get customers to fill all the orders. But now people are seeking us out. So it's an interesting change. Like, as you're saying, like, it'll be interesting to see if it continues. I know it'll drop off. Most of it will drop off. But I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll have some new converts. It can't hurt.
So you were talking about your customers and what they were emailing you. What are some of the things that you are hearing from people out there? I know you don't talk to a lot of people, you don't talk to people in person, but what are they telling you when they're emailing you? Or, you know, what are some of the things that maybe has heartened you in this last 4 weeks about why you became a farmer, and what you're able to do now by providing this kind of special service right now to the community that they're excited about?
Well, the biggest thing is that it really does validate what I've chosen to do, right? Because it's become so vitally important right now. So a lot of my customers who had emailed me just wanted to know how they can get the produce, because they had learned to depend on it. And you know, when all of a sudden that's taken away, that's a pretty dramatic shift. So I was working with a lot of them. So some of them I would make individual deliveries, like, you know, on a week-to-week basis, depending on what people need. But yeah, it's been, as I said, it's just raised so much awareness of us smaller farmers who are we're not forgotten. I mean, people still do know that we're here and they see us at the farmers market, but there's just so much awareness to the greater community now than there ever was. Because I would always have my core customers who would come every week, you know, no matter what, and they'd look over what I have and they'd get what they needed. But now it's more like, you know, everybody knows that there are small farms now. There's just a lot more awareness and a lot more understanding of how important our food systems are, and how our food systems can be inadequate for, you know, what people need. Like, I hear stories about the bigger farms who are having to dump produce or dump milk or eggs or whatever it might be, which just breaks my heart. But it does, you know, allow us to understand maybe our food systems aren't the greatest the way that they're set up. So, you know, it's just great that people are talking about how food systems work now and how we can get food, not necessarily just to people who will buy it, but to food banks and to food deserts, especially. That's been a very difficult thing in you know, the last couple of weeks. How do we get food to people who actually need it, who don't have like a pickup spot or don't have a location that they can go to? They don't have stores that they can really go to. So,
Yes.
and there's just a lot of conversations going on right now. And I think that'll probably continue to evolve over the next, you know, the rest of the year. Like, how can we prevent this in the future? If something like this ever happens again, how can we prevent that in the future? And it's just been great to hear how supportive people are of smaller farms and just, you know, how important and vital that we really are.
Yeah. I know it's very encouraging, and you hate to have a pandemic, right, in order for these kind of conversations to happen. I mean, that's like the worst possible thing, but as Winston Churchill said, don't waste a good crisis.
Yes,
so, you know, I mean, I kind of feel like that, right? In agriculture right now, in the food system, like, let's not waste this crisis, literally, like, from a food waste perspective, but also from a conversation perspective, from a understanding and education perspective about how we can change things in the future in order to make sure that these things don't happen again. The dumping, I mean, the role, having to literally, you know, I was watching a video this morning out of the Salinas Valley of, you know, they're disking up lettuce and so on. Again, that's all was all mostly going to food service. And if there's no market there, they literally can't, it costs too much to harvest it.
Right.
Get it into other markets, too perishable. So it's just, these are the way that our country has been set up for many years for obvious reasons, is, you know, get it to those food service companies as quickly as possible. And
in agriculture, it's sort of like a microcosm of what's happening really in society. Some businesses are doing fantastically well, like grocery stores sales are way up. Restaurants obviously have dropped off dramatically. So like some of the larger farms, like their sales may have dropped off dramatically because they're selling to institutions, whereas smaller farms like me, who are much more nimble and can, you know, change up our delivery systems much more quickly than the larger farms. It's been, you know, it's weird to say, but like, this is one of the best things that's ever happened to my farm because more people know about me than ever before. And it's just a really very strange time.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that the folks who are listening right now, if there's any students that want to ask questions of Farmer Jay, he's open to anything. I guarantee it. I know him well. He's open to any questions. So please feel free to ask your questions now. So Jay, what you were saying earlier that you've kind of almost got everything planted. What you know, what does the farm look like right now? What kinds of things are out there being planted? What are you harvesting right now for the boxes?
Right now, I'm harvesting really pretty much spring products. So there's lettuce that I'm harvesting. There are beets. Let's see, chard, kale, some spring onions that I had planted. So a lot of more what you would consider winter or springtime things that I'm harvesting right now. In the field, pretty much everything is planted. The only things that aren't planted at this point are like watermelons and like pumpkins and things that come on later, much later in the summer. So my field is practically full, almost full to capacity now. So yesterday I just planted some cantaloupe, and I planted some cucumbers, and all of my tomatoes I planted last week. Next week I'll probably be planting all my peppers. So it looks like a real farm now.
It's full. Yes.
That's right.
And what, do you have some favorites that some of your customers, like, you know, you can rely on, that everybody loves? And what are some of those? Because right now people are asking me, like, what are your favorite varieties? What should I be planting?
I do. Did I give away my secrets here?
No, not all of them. Not all of them. Just a couple.
So being a very, very small farm, I have to, or I've learned over the years that I need to be very specialized in what I do. So I grow very specialized particular varieties. So there's a particular variety of pepper called a habanada, which is like a habanero, but without any heat. So that's, it has the flavor, that fruity flavor of habanero without the heat of a habanero. So that's become that's sort of exploded in popularity in the last 2 or 3 years, especially among chefs. So I do crops like that. I do what's called a hakurai turnip, which is a type of Tokyo turnip, which has always been popular. That will always be very popular. Although it's expensive. The seeds are really expensive for that, and just because it's such a high end turnip. I do what's called a nabachan green onion. So, everything that I do is fairly specialized. So those are probably the three of my biggest ones. I do the shishitos. I do, and pretty much anything that people at the farmers market over the last couple of years have said, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? I'd really be interested in that. So every season I try to do like something bitter. I try to do something sweet. And I do a lot of like broccoli rabe. They do a lot of things that the bigger farmers just are like, there's not really a commodity market for that. So I sort of fill in the gaps.
That's awesome. So Jess, we have a question. Jessica Legrand has a question. So let's see if you can unmute her so she can ask it. That would be great.
All right, she's unmuted.
All right, Jessica, go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering, what's the hardest part about being a small scale farmer?
Ooh, hi Jessica. The hardest part about being a small scale farmer is the amount of work that you have to do. It's a lot of work. It's rewarding, but like I said, I don't have any other employees, so I do a lot of work myself. And because I'm small, I really don't have the finances to get big tractors, and I don't have, big harvesting equipment. So it's just a lot of it is just a lot of physical labor. So that's probably the biggest issue that I have with being a small farmer. Although I will say some of the advantages are I pretty much know every single customer that I have. So I talk directly with everybody that I sell to. So, there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. So I don't have, I can't go really big scale. So that sort of limits my income. I can't become a millionaire from being a farmer, but I get rewards in other ways. Like I'm much more involved in the community than I think some of the bigger farmers might be. I know all of the customers, and so I sort of am much more adaptable than some of the bigger farms.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And the other thing that Jay, you have done over the years is, and I'm assuming you are now too, or maybe not because you're so completely booked up, but you've done a lot of donations to the food bank, Yolo County Food Bank and other food banks. And that has obviously been a really critical piece, not just right now, but all the time, to ensure that we have good, fresh, healthy food at our food banks for people to enjoy. Like you were talking about earlier, the food access piece. The other thing you did that I remember is we tried to start a little pop-up market up in Knights Landing.
Yes, we did. We tried.
We tried because they don't have a grocery store there and so on. But I mean, it is interesting because I wonder if you were doing that today in Knights Landing, it would probably be a very different response. It's all about
absolutely.
time and when people really feel a need and maybe they don't, like I said, don't want to go to the grocery store. So I wonder if things like that, if you can think of things that might be that you'd thought of before, or that you'd hope to be able to do in the past, and that might come around after this whole thing because of changes. Are there any kind of dreams that you have, things that you want to do?
Yeah, definitely. There, really farming for me is not necessarily about just making an income, because there's a certain level of income that I need to make in order to make it, relatively reasonable for me to continue farming. But really, that's not really the reason why I got into farming. I really wanted to be more involved in the community, and I wanted to be, just have something to sort of leave a legacy for myself, and sort of to, I don't know, I guess become important and become useful to the rest of society. So I do pretty much I try to take every opportunity that I can to get involved in the community. So I'll do, food fairs, and I'll work with the Food Literacy Center, and I work with, Woodland. There's a couple of restaurants in Woodland. The Tower Bridge dinner I was involved in. So I do as many things as I can to involve myself in the community. one of the main things that I wanted to do, really the idea that when I first started this farm, is that I wanted to get, I wanted the farm to sort of become a teaching area. Because like I said, I was a teacher for many years. And my original idea was that I wanted to have people who were in the foster care system or aging out of the foster care and group home system. I wanted this to become sort of a teaching farm as they're aging out, so they can learn some skills. Maybe they want to go into farming, maybe not, but it'd be a job for them to have. That's sort of been in progress for quite a long time. There's a lot of regulations involved with that. So I'm not quite there, but that's sort of what I'm working towards. I want this farm to be something that benefits the community. And like talking to customers, going to the market, sure, that's great. But there's always just a lot more that I can do. So the main thing is I want this to make an impact on the community. And that's what I'm always striving to do.
Thank you. That's, you are already, Jay, and you will continue to be so, I am sure. One of our coordinators had a question that came up based on what you just said. So Letty, do you want to ask the question that you have for Jay?
Yeah, I wanted to know a little bit more about the Food Literacy Center. I've actually never heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a center in Sacramento, and they work mainly with younger school children. So in grade school, kindergarten, I think, through I don't know, my middle school.
Yes.
But yeah, they go into classrooms and they talk about food, and they bring vegetables to kids in their classrooms. They teach tons of classes every day to kids in schools. At this point, I'm not actually sure what they're doing right now. They're doing a lot of online webinar classes and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're a fantastic resource. They're Amber Stott, who's the creator of the Food Literacy Center. She is fantastic. She does so many things within the community. She comes to the market every week and she talks to pretty much every farmer there. So she's very much in touch with the farming community, and she's just trying to get that to children, let them understand what it's like to go to a farmer's market. She'll bring groups of kids to the market. So they do so many different projects and programs for the kids, and they're just fantastic.
Yeah, we work with the Food Literacy Center on a regular basis too, and they, like Jay said, they have classroom sessions, they do after-school programs as well. So everything from learning about what different vegetables are, doing a lot of tastings.
Yeah, that's true.
And then basic recipes that the kids do, and then they can take them home and utilize it at home as well. And so right now, that's a good point, Jay. Amber is doing daily recipes, I think, online. I've been seeing videos come across. She does some live Facebook feeds and things like that. So for those of you in Sacramento, especially, if you don't know about the Food Literacy Center, you can absolutely go and check out their website, and you can watch some of the live, and not so much live, but also the recorded pieces on different recipes and such. But yeah, so that's a really great resource that we have in Sacramento. We're super lucky to have the Food Literacy Center here, and there's other organizations around the state and in different cities that do things in some ways similarly. But yeah, she's definitely a great resource. So any last thoughts for us, Jay, as you are probably sweating in there in your greenhouse? Any last thoughts, and then we'll say goodbye because we know how busy you are.
Well, I would just say keep yourself safe. Everyone keep yourself safe. And just support your local small farms. We are out there. We have lots of produce for you. And we're, buy a box. Go to the farmer's market. We're here.
Sounds like a good motto. Buy a box.
Buy a box.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jay. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll hopefully see you on the other side of all of this.
Yes.
Doing very well, as you always are. We thank you.
Right.
All righty.
That's
Take
great.
care.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.